and that, but like it never rained or anything. It just wasn't.
It got diverted and it came back at you.
I just kept saying, I'm not giving up. I'm wearing my t-shirt. I'm wearing a capris. I'm not giving up. It was supposed to be, and there was lots of snow in the mountains. Like everywhere you look, there was tons of snow.
Okay. I'm set from this end, so whenever it's 4 o'clock and you want to start, we're good. No, we do not. Sonia, Jenny, Dimitri, no.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. We'll start with opening remarks. We'd like to welcome everybody to the hybrid and in-person and virtual meeting of the Committee of Adjustments for the Township of Central Frontenac. Just so everyone is aware, members of the public may join in person or virtually. For those of you who may be new to the Committee of Adjustments, my name is Philip Smith, and I'm the chair of the committee. We also have Francis Smith, Danny Meeks, Bill Everett, Lynn Clagus, Craig Middleton, Susan Irwin, Nikki Gowdy. We also have Cindy Deachman, our deputy clerk, who will be assisting us at the meeting as host. And we'll also be joined by our planning staff. The format of the meeting will follow the agenda posted online. Staff have also prepared a presentation for everyone to follow along with during the meeting. This will be shown on the screen. For each application with a public hearing, we will follow this format. I, as chair, will introduce the file so that everyone knows where we are on the agenda. The planner will provide an overview of the application. We will then ask if there are any comments from the applicant or their agent. Committee members may then ask staff and the applicant or their agent questions, if any. The public will then have an opportunity to ask questions or provide comments. I encourage you to ask any questions you may have. The committee will then deliberate and vote on the application. Voting will take place with members of the committee raising their hand or verbal confirmation if attending online. I will then state whether the vote was carried. All members of the public will have an opportunity to provide comment on the new applications. If a person or public body does not make oral submission at the meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Central Frontenac before a decision is made, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Please note that as of January 1st, 2023, only persons specified in the Act are permitted to appeal consent and minor variance applications. Township staff will be in touch following the meeting and will be forwarding a copy of the decision within 15 days to the applicant and anyone who has requested to be notified. Should you have any questions after the meeting, we encourage you to reach out to staff. The applicant, the minister, or any prescribed public body who has an interest in the matter may, within 20 days of making the decision or date of notice of appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal against the decision of the committee by filing with the Secretary Treasurer of the committee a notice of appeal. I will now ask Cindy Deachman to provide an overview of how members attending virtually can participate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once the meeting is open to the public, the chair will ask if anyone has any questions or comments. Members of the public attending virtually will be asked to use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. This will alert us that you would like to speak. Staff will then notify the chair that someone's speaking and then proceed to unmute your microphone. You will receive a notification that your microphone has been unmuted. Please wait a second after unmuting before speaking. If you're calling in by phone, please use the *9 feature when you would like to raise your hand. You will hear a prompt on the phone that you've raised your hand and you will be notified when your microphone has been unmuted. This afternoon, it looks like we just have one attendee on the line virtually and one in person.
So thank you. In the unlikely account that we have connection issues and the meeting cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting will be postponed and staff will be in touch with each applicant. A notice will also be posted on the township social media, letting you know. Okay, so now we will have a resolution moved by Lynn Clagus, seconded by Francis Smith, that the agenda be adopted as presented. No changes? No, as presented. All in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interests or general nature thereof to be declared? Seeing none. And we have a resolution moved by Lynn Clagus and seconded by Fran Smith that the minutes of February 9th, 2023 be adopted as presented. All in favor? Carried. We had no deferred items. Okay, so we will move to applications for consent, and we'll be looking at application B0423 HI Kennedy. And we'll ask Dimitri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for everybody in attendance.
Dimitri,
today,
if you're ready.
Yep, I'm ready. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
If you're talking, we can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. That was a weird lag. Sorry about that. So for everybody in attendance today, my name is Dimitri, and I'm one of the planners here at the County of Frontenac. Application B0423HI proposes to create a new lot from a property located at Part Lot 17, Concession 1, and Part Lot 16, Concession 2 in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook, municipally known as 1502 Ball Road. The lot that's proposed to be created will be 2.1 hectares or 5.2 acres in area, with about 182 meters of waterfront along St. Andrews Lake and about 250 meters of frontage on the existing private right-of-way that runs along the south and eastern portions of the subject land. The subject property or this lot that's proposed to be created is zoned as waterfront residential, and the overall parcel is a split zone between rural and waterfront residential. The lot that's proposed to be created is zoned waterfront area, while the retained lands are going to be zoned as rural and waterfront residential. The property proposed to be created is characterized by Conservation Authority regulated slopes and a watercourse. So planning staff are recommending deferral of this file in accordance with the technical comments that we have received from partner agencies. The Septic Review Authority, being the Township of South Frontenac, requested deferral because they were unable to go on site and inspect the septic test holes due to snow cover and frozen ground. Similarly, the Conservation Authority has also recommended deferral. The Conservation Authority needs the snow to melt so that they can go out on site and assess the slopes on the property, specifically identify the location of the top of the slope, and to determine if the watercourse that crosses the private lane into location that provides access to the property is culverted properly and does not present any natural hazards or flooding risk that will prevent emergency vehicles to access the property in the future. Further to that, the Township Public Works Department will need to go out and assess the conditions of the private lane to ensure that the private lane policies are met before the lot is created. Just wanted to point you to the site plan that's on your screen in front of you. The two issues that were raised by Quinte Conservation Authority are really related to natural hazards. So the first natural hazard being the watercourse that traverses the private lane. The private lane is identified in purple. The watercourse is in blue. So as you could see in this area and in this area, the watercourse passes this right of way, and the Conservation Authority needs to make sure that these areas are not susceptible to flooding or culvert blowout in the event of large and significant water flows to ensure that the natural hazard policies of the provincial policy statement are met. Now, the second issue that the Quinte Conservation Authority has identified is with respect to the developable area on the lot relative to the slopes on the property. So on the image in front of you, the lines in pink represent the contours or the slope of the property. And as you can see, majority of this land, I would say more than 3/4 of the lot that's proposed to be created, is essentially undevelopable due to the slopes that are present on the property, as well as the watercourse that runs basically right through the middle of it. The only real development envelope is located in this top corner here. However, that development envelope and the size of that envelope is dependent on the location of this top of slope. The top of slope, according to CA regulation, requires a specific distance to ensure that the slope is not going to collapse should the bench of the slope be developed. In this case, the Conservation Authority needs to determine where exactly that top of slope is, what the appropriate setback is, to assess whether or not this lot can actually be created and can support residential uses in the future. As you can see, this site is fairly constrained, and that is one of the reasons why this application is being recommended for deferral. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Is the applicant online or an agent?
No.
Thank you. At this time, does the committee have any questions? No. Okay, so the recommendation is a deferral. So do we read the whole resolution to defer it?
Yeah.
I was trying to get out of that.
That's a short one. You should be happy to read it.
Yeah, that was short.
So it's moved by Francis Smith and seconded by Lynn Clagus that consent application B-03-23-HI for the property located at part lot 17 concession 1 and part lot 16 concession 2 in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook for a 2.1 hectare, 5.2 acre parcel as a new lot be deferred until Quinte Conservation Authority and the Septic Review Authority, Township of South Frontenac, are able to visit the property and provide planning staff with complete technical comments. And deferred. So we're asking for technical information from Quinte and the Septic Authority. So that's what we'll be getting from Quinte.
Private lane is already created, so.
We said on there that we recommend the township.
Can you use,
It's already been.
can we use the microphones? Oh, sorry.
No, I thought they said we had to inspect the private lane for culverts and stuff, but I could be wrong.
So Quinte wants to look at the construction, I think, of the private lane, but the private lane is already constructed and been surveyed a few years ago. We did a severance. This side of the one he's doing now on that property, and it was created at that point.
Mr. Chair, can I clarify?
Please.
So Quinte Conservation Authority wants to look at the culvert crossings, so where the stream goes underneath the private lane. In addition to that, we'll need the Township Public Works to take a look at the condition of the private lane. Now, the private lane was created in a few years ago when the lot just south of the one that's being proposed was created. In order for the private lanes policies of the official plan to be satisfied, we need Public Works to go out there again to make sure that there have been no deficiencies that have come up between the time when this lane was approved and the current application, as well as the condition of the lane that abuts the existing property. So it's twofold. Quinte needs to look at the crossings, and Public Works will need to go out and take a look at the condition of the entire lane leading up to the entrance.
Susan, you had a question?
Dimitri answered or responded.
Who's good at procedural? So a deferral, do we vote on a deferral?
Yeah, you still say carried.
All in favor of deferral? Carried. Deferred, sorry, not carried.
Carried.
Okay, so we'll be looking at an application for minor variance now, application A-16-22. And that's Jenny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just make sure. All right, so this is an application.
Next one.
I have them in the wrong order. It's okay. All right, so we'll start off with the actual one. So this is an application A-16-22. This is for a water access property that is off Fifth Depot Lake. This is to recognize the construction of an addition to an existing dwelling. So the existing dwelling you can see here is located approximately 47 feet at the least distance from the high water mark of the water body, and This one's showing about 95 feet or so from the wetland on the side. Either way, the proposed addition is not going to further reduce any existing water body setbacks. It's going to have an area of about 13.2 meters or 142 square feet, and is a mechanical room / closet for one of the existing bedrooms. I'll have a better detail on the next slide. As I said, I noted it's at the rear of the dwelling with no further encroachments. So here on this next slide, you can see the layout of the cottage. It's showing there's 2 bedrooms at the back, a main living area with a bedroom, sunroom, screen porch, an uncovered deck. And the addition is this area here in red outline at the back. So it's half a walk-in closet for one of the bedrooms and half a service mechanical type room for whatever it is that they have for the cottage. So this application was circulated for review to both Quinte Conservation and the Septic Approval Authority. Quinte Conservation has no objections to the application as submitted. They indicated they have no concerns with regards to natural hazards. They did note that the property, including the area where the construction has taken place, is regulated. And a permit should have been obtained from the Conservation Authority prior to any construction taking place. However, a permit should also have been obtained from the township prior to any construction taking place. Septic approval did ask for deferral until a site visit and more information could be provided. Their rationale was that winter conditions make site evaluation challenging. Absolutely, this is a water access property. There is no way to get there in the winter without crossing ice, and that is never a safe thing. They also noted there's no information on what the current and or proposed sewage disposal or gray water system would be. Planning staff are recommending that this can be addressed prior to the issuance of any building permits, either through Quinte or the township, or both preferably, rather than deferring the application. The applicant has stated there's no plumbing in the structure. However, as noted on this previous slide, you can see the layout submitted does show a bathroom with toilet, sink, and showers. So that is something that will have to be rectified. Whether that is maybe a composting toilet or some other thing, that is something that is covered under the building code. So planning staff are recommending that this application be approved as submitted to recognize this construction, subject to conditions, including that you need a conservation permit before any building permit at the township could be issued, and the septic information is confirmed before any building permit at the township is issued. And if it's determined a septic system is needed, then it must meet all setbacks. If they're unable to for some reason, or some other issues arise with septic servicing, they may have to come back in for additional variances. The applicants are aware of this. And we're confident that no further variances or permissions would be needed. So there's no public comments received with regards to this application. Planning staff are recommending approval as submitted.
Thank you. Is there any comments from the applicant or their agent?
If the applicant wishes to speak, can you use the raise hand feature? No.
Yeah, that no is on.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm the applicant, Molatif. Thank you for the time to review our application. I think we are good already with the overall outcome already for the review, and we can request already for the approval. Conditions to be done before the permits. Regarding the septic tank, I'll try to work with the owner already to get information about the septic. There is one already on site, but this property, it has been built already a long time ago. I think it's before 60 or 70 years. So I'll try already to get this information as soon as possible.
Sorry, just to confirm, you said there is a septic tank, or there's a holding
Yeah,
tank?
my understanding there is a septic tank. Yeah, it's
Okay.
a small holding tank already on site. Yeah, it's an existing one.
Okay. So again, so we'll just be, at the time of building permit, they'll still be looking into that.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any comments from the committee or questions? Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got three nitpicky ones. It's got two different addresses.
Yes,
And-
so the civic address is a challenge as it's a water access lot.
Yeah.
The address submitted was the address where they gain right of way from the township road to the boat launching place. So it's Fifth Lake Road, Fifth Depot Lake Road. I'm not sure why, but there's a historic issue with addressing along there, and it will be one of those. They'll probably get their own address, but the address provided was for where the water access point was.
And the second thing is Quinty says it does not encroach on Big Clear Lake.
Yes, I noticed that. I assume they have some cut and paste similar to I do, and that was something that was not noted there. The discussions I had did note that it was Fifth Depot, but the comments did not.
Susan?
The Quinty Conservation Report also indicates that the addition had already been constructed without a building permit. And so my question is, how will the condition regarding the septic and sewage system be addressed?
So this was a bylaw enforcement complaint that was brought in that there was construction that took place without a permit. So part of that process is they were given the opportunity to either remove the addition or go through this process to obtain approvals. So once they've got committee approval, if you choose to approve the application, they will be required to get a building permit from the township. Part of getting a building permit would be confirmation of septic, and the conservation permit is counted also under applicable law. So the Ontario Building Code would require all of these items to be evaluated and addressed. Further, it's included as a condition of approval of this minor variance to ensure that it does get looked at.
Thank you.
That was my point exactly. The building's already there, and often when you're out of sight and out at an island, you think you don't need building permits for anything. So let's be very positive that the septic system is a class that is acceptable so that we don't pollute the water with the barrel and stone situation. That's probably what's in the ground there already. But so let's make sure we see that before any sanction of this is done.
Yes, and that will be the responsibility of the building department. So one of the requirements for any minor variance is that they have to provide a copy of all the drawings submitted to the committee here, as well as the decision. So we put in the condition that they need a permit from Quinty Conservation as well as septic confirmation in advance to any township building permit.
Any further questions from the committee? No? Is there anybody from the public that have questions or comment?
There is no one else from the public.
No? Okay, thank you. So we have a resolution moved by Francis Smith and seconded by Bill. In making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the permission requested was desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building or structure, and that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan will be maintained, or in the case of a change in a use of property which is lawful non-conforming under bylaw, as to whether or not this application has met the requirements of subsection 42 or 45 2 of the Planning Act, concur with the following decision and reasons for decision. The permission application A-1622 for the property located at part lot 19, concession 11 in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook to allow for the enlargement of an existing non-compliant structure through the construction of an addition to the dwelling. The proposed addition will have an area of 13.2 square meters, 142 square feet, and be located at the rear of the existing dwelling. This addition will be half a mechanical room and half a walk-in closet for one of the existing bedrooms. The existing dwelling is located at a minimum of 14.3 meters, 47 feet from the high water mark of 50 Depot Lake, and a minimum of 29 meters, 95 feet from the unelevated wetlands to the east. Be approved subject to the conditions and reasons noted in the planning report, and that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. All in favor? Carried. So we have another minor variance application, A-21-22.
If you want to come up, Mark, you can.
And that's Jenny again?
Yeah.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a combined application for minor variance and permission. So permission to expand an existing legal non-complying structure and additional minor variance for permission to have a footprint greater than permitted in the bylaw. Because it is not over that footprint now, that minor variance is independent of the permission to expand. It's just legal ways we address these and look at different things. So as you can see on the screen, we've got existing structures and proposed structures shown. Down by the water, there is a dock. The existing dwelling footprint, including deck and covered porches, is shown here in this blue outline and shown by the arrow. There is an existing septic system to the rear of the dwelling, shown here. This is located at the top of a slope. The building is proposed to be built into the toe of this existing slope. There's also a few small frame sheds and other things on the property. So the proposal is to demolish the existing structure, reconstruct a new building and expand the footprint from 107.8 square meters, increase that to 425.4 square meters. So that is a large percentage increase. However, the existing structure is fairly small, and there's some other considerations that go into that I'll discuss in the following slides. So both the existing and proposed footprints do include all attached decks, screen porches, other things with them. They are not just the dwelling. They do include everything that is attached to that dwelling. So the permission is because the building is going from one size to another, a larger than was before. The minor variance specifically is to permit a footprint greater than 235 square meters or 2,530 square feet as in the bylaw. So there's some background on this application. The applicant has been working with the township planning staff and conservation for almost a year now. And originally this property was 3 separate lots, as you can see on the screen here. So we have lots, I believe it is numbered A, B, and C. C is in the middle. The addressing could be different. I'm not entirely sure. Some of these lanes are fun that way. So when the initial proposal came in, planning staff did note that the enlarged structure appeared to cross over the property line between the central and the eastern lot. So that went back and forth. The applicant was able to provide confirmation from their lawyer that all 3 properties have in fact merged on title and are now considered legally one single developable property. They are showing in the county system still as 3 lots with 3 pins and 3 assessed roll numbers. However, that is just a situation where once these merge on title, because there is no consent, the assessment authority, MPAC, isn't always aware. Planning staff did recommend that the applicant contact them and get it reevaluated as a single property rather than 3 waterfront lots, as it may impact the taxes. So that was the first question that came up that was addressed. This is just showing us close up of the existing and proposed. One of the other things the applicant did was consult with the Conservation Authority in advance of any formal submission of an application to the township, which is great. This way we get feedback in advance of any concerns that may be raised or other questions that the Conservation Authority may have, which helps reduce any deferred applications. So one of the things Conservation noted was that the structure is getting further from the high water mark than the existing. While that may be a little confusing to understand when you look at the layout where the deck's going closer and you say, how is it getting further when it's getting bigger? What they're referring to is, so the existing interior dwelling space is shown here in this sketch as the sort of blue with the hatching through it. The orange dashed line here is the proposed interior living space. So as you can see, the existing interior structure to the proposed interior structure does actually have an increase in setback from the high water mark. What will be in this area is going to be uncovered decks and screen porch things. Conservation did note in their pre-application comments that uncovered decks, such as the one that does further encroach, was not of a significant concern to them because it is an uncovered deck. It's no different than if you had any patio stones or viewing decks, things like that. That wasn't as much of a concern for reduction in water body setback when other things are taken into account with this application. So again, just noting that the dwelling footprint is further from the high water mark. And it's only the uncovered deck that does further encroach. It was just easier on a closer one. You can note that the septic is at the rear as well. So having that septic system further from the lake is one of the goals, because that does help limit impact on water quality when the system is draining away from the lake, as it is at the top of the slope on this property. So as I noted, we did circulate this for formal comments from both Quinte Conservation and Septic Approval Authority. So comments from Quinte came back that they had no objections to this application as submitted, with the increase going up to that 425 square meters. They did note that prior to the submission of this application, conservation staff did a site visit in May of 2022. At that time, they flagged the seasonal high water mark of Chippewa Lake and measured the minimum setback to that high water mark as 7 meters. One of their requests of the applicant was that no part of the structure encroach further towards the water than that 7 meters, save and except for open and uncovered decks, as was just discussed. Quinte's did not have any concerns with regards to natural heritage and stated that this application, with the increase in size and the over footprint, was consistent with their regulations. Ontario Regulations 319-09. Again, noted that uncovered deck encroachment slightly less than the 7 meters existing was not an issue from their point of view. They would have had some concerns if it was covered and or enclosed like a screen porch, but the open deck was less of an issue for them. Septic approval noted that the existing septic system on the property is insufficient for the enlarged development, based on the information they had through permit HI-9-12 through from KFLNA. Given the size discrepancy between the previous and proposed, not surprised that they would need a new and larger septic system. Septic approval did note that the larger dwelling will need a new or upgraded septic system, as whatever would be most appropriate determined at the time of the building permit. This application hasn't been done, as the applicant wanted to ensure they had approval from the committee to proceed before going through the design for a septic system that may not be required. Also did note that the existing system is greater than 30 meters from the high water mark, so there will be no requirement for either minor variance or permission for expansion or reinstallation of that septic system should it be needed. The plan is to relocate the septic system in approximately the same location as the existing system, or expanded in that whatever's based on the septic design, but with the company that works with the housing. There was no public comments received with regards to this application. There was some initial concerns with regards to visibility, character of development on the property. So what I've provided to you is the sort of preliminary and concept sketches that were provided by the applicant. The side of the structure that you see here will be the side facing the lake. So it is a one-story, single-story slab on grade. There'll be no basement, no crawl space type things. It's designed only to be this one level. So the footprint is larger as it's all on one level. You don't have up, down, basement. You don't have any of those additional spaces. And the roof lines are fairly low in keeping with what a lot of the existing roof lines are along the shoreline of the lake currently. This view here is the non-water side. So a lot of the footprint increase on this side is, in addition to the dwelling, is this covered porch area and carport. This will go into approximately the carport areas, the base or toe of the slope that leads up to the septic system. So it was discussed whether there was an opportunity to further increase the setback, relocate the dwelling. The proposal takes advantage of the existing cleared space and limits the vegetation removal on the entirety of that property. So permission is to expand the structure. The minor variance is specifically with regards to the footprint. So between the initial pre-application meeting and the formal application submission, the township did update their zoning bylaws. So when this came in initially, the permitted footprint or lot coverage on a waterfront property such as this was 15%. The footprint or lot coverage for the proposal is 9.8%. So that was well under the permitted lot coverage at that time. There was no concerns with regards to minor variance. When the zoning bylaw was updated, the footprint within 60 meters was reduced from 15% to 10%. So as I noted, at 9.8%, this structure would still meet the lot coverage provisions, even with the reduction proposed through or approved through the bylaw update. However, in addition to the maximum footprint square footage, a maximum hard number footprint of 235 square meters was also imposed. Where this is a challenge for this applicant was this process started under one set of rules, proceeded drawings, things came under another set. So planning staff did re-examine the proposal with the new rules, which are more restrictive in order to help reduce impact on water bodies in the township. There's a slight disconnect between the percentage permitted and the square footage, especially on properties like this where they're not very deep. The entire property is within 60 meters, but there's lots of space along the shoreline. So the intent of limiting the structure's square footage and footprint is to limit the density of development along the shoreline. As this property is wider more than deep and is less than that 10%, it was the opinion of planning staff that the application to permit a structure greater than the maximum footprint was minor for the following reasons. Really, there's no adverse impacts on the neighboring properties. They're not getting close to side lot lines. And the footprint increase proposed is primarily to the side and rear of the existing structure. As I noted, only the uncovered deck encroaches slightly further into that existing non-complying water body setback. It is desirable for the appropriate development as more functional for the property owners. And I believe family, grandchildren, etc., who all like to take advantage of lakefront properties and cottages. And an additional, as I know, there's no loss of privacy or overlook to the neighboring properties, as this will be located approximately in the center of the 3 lots that have merged on title. When looking at, does it conform to the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? It's similar in character and density of other shoreline developments. Some of the other cottages in the immediate vicinity are smaller than this property. However, the lots are also significantly smaller. And when the lot coverage was calculated, a lot of the existing properties had a lot coverage of between 15 and 20%. So the structures are smaller, but there's a whole lot of them all in a row, which has a lot more built form along the shoreline than one property with a single larger dwelling than a number of different ones along there like that. So it's the opinion of planning staff that The character and density is very similar to other developments. In fact, the overall lot coverage is less than a lot of the other ones. There'll be no impact to the existing shoreline vegetation. So any of the vegetation in place, trees, things along that shoreline buffer where there is some slope down to the water will be maintained, which helps in aiding with the water quality objectives of the zoning bylaw, as well as the trees and things that are already there will aid with the screening and any potential visual impact that a larger dwelling would have on the lake. With regards to the intent and purpose of the official plan, again, similar in existing character. There's no negative water body impacts anticipated, as this does have an existing residential dwelling. It will have an existing it will have a new residential dwelling. And we're actually reducing the number of properties that are able to be developed with these merging on title. So instead of 3 dwellings along here, you're only ending up with 1. There were no public comments received with regards to this application at this point. And based on all of the information provided, planning staff are recommending that the committee hear any comments from the public today, if any, and approve the application as submitted, subject to conditions in the planning report. These conditions include the construction is to take place as proposed in the drawings or the application with the maximum square footage of 425.4 square meters. And to be located the minimum 7 meters from the high water mark of Chippewa Lake, with the deck being that slightly less. The total footprint of the reconstructed dwelling must include any enclosed screen porches, covered, uncovered decks, and the carport. So that would be the maximum footprint, and anything attached to the dwelling must be within that footprint. Also, there's to be no adverse impacts on neighboring lots, which includes sediment control measures during construction, no alteration to natural drainage patterns, and a septic permit and a conservation permit will be required before any township building permit can be issued.
Thank you. Does the applicant have any questions or comments for the committee?
No questions. Just we've tried to follow all of the guidelines and the guidance from the planning department. We're trying to do things in the right order. So it's been a longer process than anticipated, but hopefully we've still followed all the right steps.
Thank you. The committee have any questions on the application?
Well explained.
I try my best. There was a lot of parts and things that changed, and so it was just, yeah.
And we have nobody online from the public. Okay, thank you. So we have a long resolution moved by Bill and seconded by Fran. In making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the variance and permission requested was minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure, and that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan will be maintained, or in the case of a change in a use of property which is lawful non-conforming under the bylaw, as to whether or not this application has met the requirements of subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act, concur in the following decision and reasons for the decision. Their minor variance and permission application A-21-22 for the property located at Part Lot 7, Concession 11 in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook, 1174C Dwyer Lane, to enlarge an existing non-compliant structure through the demolition and reconstruction and enlargement of this structure. The existing 107.8 square meter, 1160 square foot, single-story dwelling with attached deck and covered screen porch will be replaced with a new single-story dwelling with a total footprint of 425.4 square meters, 4,578.5 square feet. The total footprint of the reconstructed dwelling, including an enclosed screen porch, covered unenclosed deck, uncovered deck, covered porch, and carport. Permission for the extension of a legal non-conforming use or structure is required because the current structure does not comply with the zoning bylaw because it does not meet the required 30-meter setback to the high water mark of Chippewa Lake, be approved subject to the conditions and reasons noted in the planning report. And that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So you'll have
Yeah.
documents to get to them?
Yeah, I'll send you stuff.
Okay, and no other planning business tonight? No? Okay, we have one more resolution. Moved by Fran and seconded by Bill that this meeting be adjourned until 4 p.m. April 13th, 2023, virtually and in person at the Oso Hall, 1107 Garrett Street, Sharper Lake. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everybody. What's that?
Have a good night, everyone.